So our last thing for today is compliance and legal protection. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, like this is why like the main point, right, of why I do what I do is my experiences in passing internal audits in aerospace and automotive audits, and then when you started your practice, April, like, again, we kind of just willy-nilly'd it. You were a lot of self-pay, and then it got really serious really quickly with different funders. And when they came with these in-network audits, it was just like, whoa. And so, my experience, I was able to help with this, and just understanding what you're doing, right? And knowing that there are a lot of laws and rules that you need to follow. And I don't want this to be scary. It's just, this is a fact. And so knowing that you have state regulations that you need to be following, there are federal regulations that you need to follow. And then there's also going to be funder regulations that you need to follow. And in some cases, a funder may require that you do something, even if you're a small company, that you may not necessarily need to follow, like OSHA, right? OSHA has a certain number of employees that they don't normally need you to follow these rules unless you're a larger company, but your funding source may require that you follow them. So it's really important that you understand there are a lot of rules that you need to follow, and you want to protect yourself, right? And that's really where we're coming from, is that you're creating a company that is important to you. You want to provide quality services, and you want to help children, and that's awesome. And I'm very honored to be a part of this thing. I never knew that I was going to get into this, but I'm in this space, and I want to help people do that, because it's a very honorable thing to do. And so the problem that you may run into is that, well-meaning as you are, you may do some things that you're not supposed to. And so having that foundation and following those requirements and having those protections in place is going to mean that you can keep on providing these services with your company for a very long time. And again, it doesn't take much, just the fact that you have policies in place and you're treating all of your clients equally. If you just want to go from that, right, that we're treating everybody the same, we're not causing any issues here, like just that in itself is super important, and then you get into the financial responsibility and notice of privacy practices. And this is another podcast that we'll be doing after this one on what are the most important things to have in a client handbook. It's just so important that you're following these things. And sometimes it gets in the way of providing services, unfortunately. But it's so important that you have those pieces in these handbooks. So not only do you understand your rights, but your clients understand their rights. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it and summed it up really nicely.
Okay, cool. So we're just going to go briefly over our handbook. And so you can take a quick look at it just to see how we do it. So our handbook comes in Word. And then there are some other pieces like the medical questionnaire comes in Excel. So we're just going to briefly go through that so you can see it. We get a lot of questions. What does it look like? And here it's a great day. You're going to get to see what it looks like. All right. So this is the main page. Wow. Isn't it spectacular? This is the client handbook. And so we have, this legal information. Something that I think is very important to go through is, I don't know what you're doing with these things. So you'll purchase them on our website. You'll edit them. I've seen some people, like on the employment side, remove minimum wage requirements, remove sexual harassment policies, try to make RBTs contractors. Don't do those things, please. So I don't know what you're doing with these things. So it's really important that you have someone with some HR competency review these after you've done the editing process. I highly recommend it. The other thing, just to be completely transparent, There may be county or city regulations that you need to follow. We don't go that far down the rabbit hole. We stick with state and fed. So that's just something to be aware of. So I highly recommend you have somebody review these after you've done the editing process. And the last thing I'll say on this, please review them yourself. We've been through some audits with some of the accreditation programs. I'm not mentioning any names, but they'll say, I know your handbook, Stephen, because they still have the little squirrely brackets in them. So people didn't change all of the brackets. So I highly recommend reviewing all of these policies before going through the accreditation process or before handing this to a client. The last thing that you want to do is be going through the policies at the same time as your client saying, wow, okay, we do this thing here. Okay. That's probably not putting your best foot forward. So I highly recommend reviewing them before that. So I'm going to go through the table of contents first. So there are a lot of policies, and we'll share the link to the actual table of contents and the, where you can purchase it. There are a lot of policies here. Again, some come in Excel. This does work for both in-home and clinic. So a question I get asked often is, okay, I'm not clinic. Okay, just remove those. Or, I'm only doing clinic. Okay, remove the in-home policies, right? But again, very comprehensive. It's 153 pages. It's ridiculous. And so this is, our intake packet checklist. This is our welcome page. We do have some yellow highlights in here so that you can add your own things. Like we have a mission statement in here. That's not yours. This is our financial responsibility agreement. That's as far as I'm going. Okay. So if you want more information on these, feel free to book a free consult on our website, and we will share that link in the notes as well. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is, obviously you're going to make these your own, throw in your logo wherever you want, but we do have this process. So if you double click here, so this is, it will fill in all these placeholders for you as you go through it. So it'll ask you, what do you call behavior tech, right? And then you can change that to whatever you want. And it'll ask you, what's your company address? And so it'll go through this entire thing for you. And then all the placeholders will be filled out for you if you have Word on a desktop. If not, just use Find All, Replace All, and then you can change those.